That's it. It's recording. Can somebody from my team check that this is actually happening, please? It is recording. Okay. I'm going to quickly share my screen. So I'll do a very quick introduction and then we just get going. Okay, let me share my screen. Okay, I hope you can all see my presentation. I can't see you. I can, if you want to put something in the chat, if you want to ask a question, put something in the chat. I would suggest that my team also, prompt me to stop if there are questions. And I'll start by saying that welcome everybody. And this morning, I also like to point out that we have a guest speaker, Marie-Christine Jacquemot from INIST at Opidor. Opidor is the, if you like, equivalent implementation of DMPonline in France. It's the national service for data management plans. Then we have Don Stuckey, a DCC developer, who will give a brief overview of the proposed specification for the machine actionable grant ID field. And Marie-Christine Jacquemot, our guest speaker, will show us the very fancy implementation of the equivalent feature in Opidor. I hope you will all enjoy this morning's session. Before we start, I'll give you a very, very quick overview or a quick update on what we've been up to. So until yesterday, we worked really, really hard on upgrades to infrastructure, and I'm pleased to say that we've certainly completed the upgrades to the operating system. It was a long journey, but we're really pleased to have upgraded all of our machines. The one thing we'll be working in terms of upgrades to infrastructure is Shibboleth. Upgrades to our single sign-on feature. We've met with JISC. These are the managers of the Shibboleth infrastructure in the UK, and we hope to. We've met with JISC, and they're already proposing changes to our system, or suggesting better ways of implementing it. And what we hope to do, if you remember that at the moment, when people click on single sign-on and don't have DMPonline accounts, they're taken to the split screen. Whereas what we hope to do is to, if people click on single sign-on to sign on in institutional credentials, they should be taken quite smoothly through creating a DMPonline account, then linking to the institutional credentials and logging in. The current implementation of our single sign-on procedure doesn't quite work, particularly for some Swedish universities. Now, the timeline for that is just think that they can come up with a specification for us potentially late November, beginning of December. They were even suggesting next year, early January, but we said the closer it gets for us to the International Digital Curation Conference in February, the harder it becomes for us to pay attention to their working with them. So we're hoping to do it before January. We'll keep you posted on this. In terms of development, having done the upgrades to infrastructure, we're really pleased to say that this has freed up our time for development work. And what we're currently working now on is machine actionable grant ID field. As you can see, the integration with Research Organization Registry and integration with RSpace. This is an eLab notebook. We hope, I'm not going to give you timelines for these, but we hope they could happen relatively quickly. We certainly promised RSpace and integration by February 2024. So we will have to move fast on that one. I hope that I will come up with deadlines for the other two. I'd also like to point out that we're planning a Data Management Plan Tools workshop on interoperability at IDCC 2024. The workshops take place on 19th of February, just before the main conference, which is on the 20th and 21st of February. And the idea behind the workshop is that we will invite several data management plan tool providers. We will ask them to give a brief overview, a lightning talk on their challenges on implementing links with other data management systems. And we will come up. We'll also invite other research data management tool providers, for example, DataSite. I'm trying to think, potentially linking with Zenodo. We could have a representative from Zenodo. There are a variety of tools that are already listed on the agenda for this meeting, and I've put the agenda link. I've put the agenda in our chat. So I suggest that you go to the agenda and add any suggestions for other tools that we can link to, Chris system. Things like that, because we will be talking to each other, but I'm very keen that I hear from you, the end user, particularly users with administrative rights, administrators. What is it that you think is beneficial to the end user? What systems should DMPonline, Opidor, and other data management plan tools, what systems should they be speaking to or integrate with? I will do my best. Right, the ultimate goal for the workshop is to come up with a minimum set of tools that any data management plan tool provider should link to. I don't know whether we'll manage that in that particular workshop, but I'm really pleased that we at least started the discussion. And I'm really proud of that, because it is also in Edinburgh, I think in 2017, that the discussion on a minimum common set of standards for machine actionable DMPs also started in Edinburgh. So I'm really pleased that we're also starting a discussion on a minimum set of interoperable, standards that we should put in place. So please add your suggestions on the agenda. I think it's item 1 under the introduction. Okay, and I am also keen to get you involved in this workshop. The problem with it is that I don't know how to get your participation, because the location for the conference doesn't have very good facilities for a hybrid meeting. So it may be that I'll have to get your input beforehand, or organize one online session where you can talk to the people who are present there, the various research data management tool providers, and so on. I'm still thinking about that. Right, very quickly, today's agenda, it's our usual timeline, and Don will speak first about the proposed specification for the machine actionable grant ID in DMPonline. You can ask some questions. We can then go for a coffee break. Then we can hear from Christine about the very, very fancy implementation of the equivalent feature in Opidor. Then we'll have a quick summary. Please, for the question session, and also ask Christine, feel free to send questions after the meeting, put them on the agenda. We'll do our best to answer all of them. Okay, so I think I'm gonna stop sharing my screen and hand over to Don, our next speaker.
Great. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to discuss the current feature specification we have for this machine actionable grant ID field. So first of all, just stepping out and looking at the big picture. So our general goal is to increase the interoperability of DMPonline in general. So this means integrating DMPonline with other external systems. The benefits of that is that the data that we have in DMPonline is more accurate. It's consistent across systems, so our system and other systems, and also saves time for the user if a lot of this data can be retrieved dynamically. So less typing in of information by the user. And so developing a machine actionable grant ID field is just one example of this wider goal, wider project. So we've got the current project details page that you all know and love when you're creating a DMP plan. And there's the grant number /URL field just at the bottom. So currently this field is independent of all the other fields, just a text field. But in effect, in essence, the value that you enter here should really determine many of the other values or many of the other project detail values for those fields. So that's the question is, so can we retrieve those other values by calling an API given we have the grant number, grant ID? Okay, so based on our initial investigations, we found that the following research funding bodies have public APIs. So we have the Research Database of Finland, UKRI, Open Air Graph. Yeah, so for each of these APIs, given a grant or project ID, these APIs can return the project's details, which is what we're looking for. So we want to make use of these APIs. So yeah, so the initial suggested feature specification. So first of all, a template, we envisage that a template could be associated with a funding research body API. So on creating a template, the user could choose which API should be called by plans of the template. With such a template in place, when a user goes to create a plan based on that template, the user can just enter the grant ID and the project detail fields would be populated automatically. So that would go something like this. So we imagine in this example use case, the grant has already been awarded, so the user has the grant ID. The user can enter the grant ID here. And then based on that, just on entering the value into this field, the API would be called behind the scenes. And these fields could then be populated automatically with the results of the API call. Yeah. So just a question we have on the current feature specification. Suppose a user creates a plan before the grant ID is available, which I think is quite a common scenario. And the user enters interim values for the project title, start and end dates, etc. When the user does obtain the grant ID and enters it into the plan, should the interim values be overwritten with the values retrieved by the API call? Or alternatively, should the user have the option of retaining some or all of the interim values they entered previously? Yeah, so that's one of the questions we have just with the initial feature specification. Other than that, we're putting the feature specification, what we have so far, out to you for suggestions, questions, feedback. And if anyone has any thoughts on this particular question, it's very welcome. Yeah, and that's pretty much it.
Maybe you can mention, Don, the current APIs we found for funders.
Yes, okay. These ones here, these are the three APIs we've found so far. So the Research Database of Finland, UKRI APIs, and the Open Air Graph APIs. So these are the ones. There could be more that are available, but so far these are the ones that we've identified. And if anyone has the opportunity to encourage other funding bodies to develop public APIs, that's very welcome as well, because that means we can integrate with other research funding bodies.
Don, there seems to be a question.
Okay.
Do you want me to? I can read it out. But...
Okay. Can I? Oh, yeah, it's okay. I've got that here.
Yeah.
So choose the template. Some funders allow this. I'll read out the question. So can a user then still choose the template of the institute, as some funders allow this, and an institutional template is usually better fitting, fine-tuned. So my initial thought on that question is that you could still have the template associated with an institute, but you would just have this additional option of additionally associating the template with one of the public APIs of a research funding body. So I think the two would still be compatible.
I guess you're still going to create a plan. You still need to create a plan before you actually get to the point that you select which fields, which API you were going to use.
From the discussions that Diana and I have had so far, it would be more the point of the template, where that's where you decide where it would be set, which API plans of that template would be called.
Okay.
Yeah, so essentially we hope to integrate with lots of funders, be able to call in that field lots more APIs. So if you have, if you're aware of more APIs that we can test, please send them forward. I can see, so please send them along. And I can see another question. Sometimes a DMP is associated to more than one grant worth considering. Yes, that is correct. I am aware that we have to add in our system the add another funder. We did discuss this. We will be writing a more detailed specification and sending over to you. So yes, Don, if you add to the spec the add another funder field, we were aware of this. The other issue we might have is the terminology, and I really wonder what you think about this. The terminology can be quite fuzzy in both DMPonline and the funder systems, and we need to be very precise about this for the benefit of the user. Yes, we want to integrate with all the systems and make things smooth, but not at the expense of usability. I really am adamant about that. So in DMPonline, we sometimes refer to data management plans as plans, sometimes as projects. Now, funders, as you can see, we're talking about a machine, about a grant ID. Sometimes grant providers, funders, refer to grants within these grants, they fund several projects. So for them, grant IDs can mean different things. The overall grant has a name, and within that grant, they funded several projects, and that can also be difficult. So this is why we're looking for more examples of APIs to see what terminology they use out there, because it could become very difficult for the end user to know what ID to enter there. We can add some help text to make it easier for them. But yes, we spotted that just by looking at 3 APIs and 3 funding bodies. There is a mishmash of terminology out there that could be make it difficult for the end user. I don't know what your thoughts are on this. Please feel free to speak.
Just to add, Diana, because there can be there's quite a variation in terminology between funding bodies. I think that is kind of what led us to want to have the an API set for a template. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Any other thoughts? Just a sense check. Let me see. Presumably, if research is unfunded, end users would simply complete fields manually as currently. Yes, it's a matter of when they fill in the plan. Yeah. So even if the plan is never funded, then everything works as it's worked up until now. The only reason why we have this machine actionable grant ID is because it has been asked of us to link a data management plan, for a funded project, to the database of the funder. But no, it's not mandatory. It's not going to be a mandatory field. Yeah, so this was okay. That's from Chris. Thanks, Chris. Margaret, sorry, you have, is this a link to, Margaret, is this a link to another grant ID provider, to another funder? Sorry for my ignorance.
Yes, well, I work at ZonneW, which is a funder. And for COVID, we developed together with Go Fair Foundation several metadata schemes under which the project administrative metadata. And these are actually the administrative metadata that many funders use. The project title, the project lead, institute, etc., including the grant ID. So the grant ID, the way you propose now, would be a great addition to the metadata scheme that we developed and are using for several programs now. And even we extended it together with Global at Oxford University, the UK CDR, to have a standardized, again, project administrative metadata set, but then for the global infectious diseases projects. So we are. I've put a link at CEDAR, and if you scroll down, you can find the open view of the metadata. I can also put these metadata are machine actionable and can be exposed in a human readable form on a portal. I can put a link for that as well. So, well, a long story short, we have a metadata scheme for administrative metadata. Maybe helpful.
Yes, please. Yeah, I see you've added it on the agenda. So if you added, if you don't mind adding the other link you mentioned, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have to keep polishing this specification before we start coding some, random. This is why I want to hear your ideas before we start working. Some of you have offered to be part of. Stuart Bentley has just joined. Welcome, Stuart. So some of you have offered to be part of a mini working group on this. So I'll be in touch with you after today's meeting, so that we can start working on polishing the specification. Anybody has any more to add to this?
Dan, I don't know if we covered Petra's question here.
Petra? Yeah, you read it out.
Yeah, so that means that making use of the APIs will be independent of the template choice. In the current sketch of a specification we have, that's not the case, but that's something we can explore. Yeah.
That's a good question. So making use of it would be independent of the template choice.
I guess then if it's not specific to the template, that means it has to be the end user selecting which API would be picking up.
Yeah.
Okay, Petra, you speak. Sorry,
Yeah.
you lifted your hand. You want to talk? Go ahead.
Yeah, it was just that we usually advise our researchers to take the LMC template because it's the most complete, and it also helps us as supporters to give them the support they need. So then you don't want any decision based on an API that they have to switch to another template because the funder has an API available to fill the grant ID. So for me, it would be very useful if they can just choose the LMC template and then get the grant ID via the API of the funder.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. That is the
Gives
same
more
question from
flexibility
Irene. Yeah.
to
Can a
user.
user still choose the template of the institute? Yes. Some funders allow this, and an institutional template is usually better fitting and more fine-tuned. Correct. I mean, in general, we're aware that we have to look at this template selection process in our system anyway. But yeah, that is an important question, and we have to look at it into the spec.
Yeah, and I think for all institutes in the Netherlands, this is the case. We all want to have the institute template preferred over all the other ones.
Okay, yeah.
Because they're also all reviewed by the funders, and they have given us permission to use the institute ones.
Yeah, correct. And NWO, the Dutch funder, does the same. And I'm aware of in Finland, they would also like to do the same, to kind of generate an institutional template rather than select a funder template. An institutional template looks very much like the funder template. So everybody seems to prefer that. Yeah, the institutional template. So we need to look at our whole distinction between funder and institutional template anyway. But this comes back to the two scenarios that we have. At which point does the user fill in a plan or links the plan with a grant ID? Because many users start filling in the plan before they apply for a grant. It also depends on the guidance that they receive from their own institution, from their home institution. Whereas a lot of users seem to have been moved towards filling a plan after they've been given a grant, after the project has been funded. Okay, so Margaret, I've seen that. Here is the human readable portal exposing the machine actionable metadata, M4M project admin. Okay.
Yes, well, as I said, the grant ID is, there was not a machine actionable grant ID yet. So as I said, that would be a very nice addition to the metadata.
Okay, Irene said WR does the same. Mrs. Windlesham University, sorry. Irene, sorry, I don't know off the top of my head, but thanks for letting us know. Miriam, same for us. Institute template is preferred. Yeah, it's good to hear. Zone MW and European Commission too. Irene, what do you mean?
I mean that you can hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. That Zone MW and European Commission also allow institutional templates.
Oh, right.
It was just a response to someone else saying that NWO did, but these two funders also do that.
Yeah, because we were asked to get, and again, by DMPonline, they said that they would prefer to actually make a copy of the funder. Let's put it that way, it's very simplistic terms, make a copy of the funder template and just dismantle it and reorder things whichever way they see fit and make it an institutional template. I get the impression everybody feels the same, or more and more providers feel the same. Am I right?
Is this a question to me?
To everybody and whoever, but Irene, you go first.
I don't know about dismantling, but we have just created a institutional template that's indeed, as I think Petra already pointed out, is more fitting to all the services provided at the university or institute. So, I mean, that's easier. I mean, it's already a lot of work for researchers to fill in a template, but if it's really fitting already the situation they're in, it's easier to do. And I think that funders are recognizing this and therefore allowing institutional templates.
Yeah, but they're allowing institutional templates that also contain a minimum of funder requirements.
Yeah, and that they're based on certain guidelines, European guidelines, for example, regarding data management plans. So yeah, there should be a certain base in it. Yes, of course. But it's not that the funders are specifically dictating certain minimum topics, for example.
Well, I can add to that in the Netherlands, as NWO and Zonneweg acknowledge institutional templates on the basis of their content. And if we're looking at the core requirements of Science Europe, which is the minimum that we recommend or require. Yeah. And from there on, institutions can choose additional modules facilitating their own circumstances, services, etc. Yeah.
And as I understand, they get approved by NWO. Is that correct?
Exactly. Yeah.
And then they get published as institutional templates. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, that's the case. In the meantime, we're also looking at more fairness, like the data stewardship wizard, which allows to work with knowledge models based on a thorough analysis of the fair resources in a certain research domain. So at the end, it would be very nice if all these options become machine actionable. So that if you have your institutional template or the DMPonline template or the data stewardship wizard, that you can always use this type of information besides only the grant ID. But that's again more in the future, I think.
Yeah. As I said, I mean, we will slowly integrate these tools, but we have to be careful that we don't overdo it, that it becomes almost impossible for the user. We need to also ask the end user, what is it that you want, that you find useful? Joachim?
Yeah.
Yes, sorry. Well, I just wanted to say that at Stockholm University, we appreciate the flexibility, the possibility to choose which template to use. We have our own institutional too as a default, but many users want to or need to use, for example, the Horizon Europe template or the ERC or whatever, because that's where they got their grant. So and they demand to use that template. And on top of that, we have the general Swedish Research Council template, which is more text oriented.
Yeah.
So I don't. I hope you are not considering taking away any templates that are. Yeah.
No.
Okay. That's all I wanted to say.
No.
Okay.
They'll be there, don't worry.
Okay, great.
We're just trying to make it easier for institutions that prefer to use their own templates, but we're not considering removing funder templates. No.
Great. Thank you.
Good. Can I just ask as well if there is if there's a choice of choosing the API at the point of the template creation or choosing the API that is called at the point of when you create the plan, is there a preference for one way or the other on average?
Could you explain a bit what?
Yeah, so just in the specification we laid out on the slides, the idea is that when the user creates a template or updates a template, they would set the API that would be called for the grant ID field, the API that would be looked up, and then when you create a plan, that is set. That API can't be changed, so it would only call that one funding API. But alternatively, we haven't explored this, but I think it could be possible is that you don't set an API for a particular template, but when you come to create a plan, you'd have, for example, a drop down, and you could select which funding body API should be called when you at the point when you're creating the plan in the project details page. On that page, I think that the second option, where you select the API when you're creating the plan, I think is more flexible, because you could have, for example, one institutional template. You go to create a plan, and you could choose from multiple funding agencies APIs to call.
I guess it's down to, do we want the org administrators to select the API, or do you want the end user to select the API? So it's kind of who should be making the decision of which API to use.
It's something that we have to look at, but we have to allow maximum flexibility by the sound of it, because as we put in in our specification, there are difficult different scenarios, for the machine actionable grant ID field, and they depend upon when the user creates the plan.
It could be that we basically allow both. The end user will always have the right to overwrite what's the API that is presented or by default in the template. So the org administrator selects the API, but then the end user in the plan details can overwrite which API to use if they want to. So that will give more facility, I guess, more choices.
Okay, let's not talk to each other. And Don, did you feel that you got an answer to your question, or is it still?
Yes. Yeah, I think we should, following this discussion, I think we should explore both options. And I think Marta's idea is really good as well, that we have a default for a template, but the user has the option to choose a different API if required.
Okay, so Miriam, okay, let's see. Okay, European Commission too. Miriam says, as long as it's clear to the users what they select. Yeah, I think so. Also, we may have to divorce it, although I don't know how easy that would be to divorce it completely from the template, because at the end of the day, the fields we're filling in are name of the plan. It's not dependent upon the structure of the template or the questions in the template. It's mostly the project details page that we're filling in. Yeah. Yeah, so I think it comes back to usability, as Miriam points out, as long as it's clear to the user what they select and why. Joachim, you lifted your hand temporarily. Did you want to say something?
No, sorry, it was a mistake. It's already been said.
Okay, that's good. So where are we? We have, anybody has any other questions? Miriam.
Yes, I have a question. Maybe it's not the right time to ask this, but is the plan creation wizards update, is this the development, is it dependent on this feature, or can you update that despite of the development for this feature? Because that's a development that we're waiting for long, and that's creating a lot of misconceptions for our users. So are you waiting for that to develop, or can it be developed now, the new plan creation wizard? That you have the institute template presented as an option instead of that the box that you should tick.
Mm-hmm.
So
well, maybe it shouldn't just be, I mean, it's becoming clear to us as we're looking at this that the two are quite closely linked. So we may, in the end, have to work in parallel on the two, on the machine actionable grant ID and template and the new plan creation wizard. I don't know what everybody else here from my team.
Yeah, but as you stressed just now that the API is providing information for the project details, so not on the core template, and in this case on the institutional template, for instance. So
I think, in kind of my point of view of knowledge of the tool, I think they could be done separately, because, as you said, one is about what you're going to select, and the other one is what you're going to add to what you select. So I think that they can be done separately, but we weren't sure until now we kind of start seeing the development of the next feature that we kind of realize that maybe we can actually do them separately.
Maybe we can, but we have to be aware of the fact that they need to work well together.
Yeah. So definitely. So that's
they need to work very well together. Otherwise, we confuse the user. So it could be that we have to look at the two at the same time and constantly polish it. Yes, we're keen to have machine actionable features, but we mustn't deploy them at the expense of usability. That is a must.
Just on that point, Diana, actually, because there is this question we had about if a user has already entered interim values for project details, should when the grant ID is finally entered and the values are retrieved, should the user have the option of retaining those interim values? I was wondering if anybody has any thoughts on this question. Because it does relate to usability. We don't want, if somebody's already entered in values that they want to retain, we don't want this integration to overwrite them if that's not is what is not desired. Joachim?
Yeah. Sorry. I think at least there should be, a question. Do you want to retain? And in that case, you will just paste the new information after, or so that you can edit afterwards.
Yeah, okay, so you think there should be a prompt saying...
Yeah, a prompt, yes.
That's the word. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I think a prompt is okay, but if you fill in interim values when you want to have the correct values afterwards that you retrieve by the API, then it's something that you do on purpose. So if you don't want to get the information from the API, you can just leave your interim values there, because I guess it will not be overwritten automatically.
Well, that's our question, whether it should be overwritten automatically, but Joachim suggested a prompt so that the user can decide, because either way, even if you wanted to retain the interim values, you would presumably still want to have the grant number field entered.
Well, yeah, that's the whole point of it. So you need the grant number, but if when you enter the grant number, for example, you don't want to overwrite the project name, let's pick on the project name, right? I think we've run out of time here. So you most certainly want to enter the grant number, right? Because that is essential. That's the whole point of it. But the user should then, the prompt that says, you know, the project name will be overwritten. Are you okay with this? And the user should say yes or no. Somebody lifted their hand. Ida.
Yes, I raised my hand. I think there are two dimensions to this. If I was an end user, I would be a bit not angry, maybe milder. If I filled out the form and then I get suggestions, do you want to override this? I would feel that I have done something wasteful in a sense. With that said, maybe you have filled out it before and then you get the grant.
That's right.
And so on. But then how I see this, or if I picture this functionality in front of me, I would say there are these drag and drop fields. So you have the API and then you get these start date, end date. And do you want to drag this to your already filled out start date, end date, and so on. So maybe the API doesn't fill out the form. Maybe it gives suggestions that you can drag and drop. But that's only a picture that I get in my head when listening to this.
It was a good idea. Thanks. So we can look at that.
Did you make a note of that, Don?
Yeah.
Okay. That's great. Okay, I think we need to stop here. Thank you so much for your suggestions. Please put them on the agenda or send to us any other suggestions you have via the help desk. Hello. So now I'm going to invite Christine from INIST to give us a demonstration of how the machine actionable grant ID works for Opidor. It's very fancy, and I'm really looking forward to see this. Christine, do you want to share screen?
Yes.
Take over. Thank you.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Thank you for inviting me. So I work in France in a support unit for CNRS, which is called the Institute for Scientific and Technical Information. And so in 2016, we launched DMP Opidor, which was based on DMP roadmap code. And in 2020, we launched the V3 of DMP Opidor, which is still based on DMP roadmap code, but we've added new data modules. But first of all, I'm just going to show you the implementation of the grant ID information. Then maybe I will have to explain you a little bit more to make it clearer how it works. My English is not so good, so feel free to ask any question if I'm not clear enough. So, okay, so we are on DMP Opidor, and I'm going to create a plan. So we're working, so this is not the production instance. This is our pre-production, so that's an instance to do our test. And we're working now on a DMP for project, but also for structure research laboratory. So that's why you have the two options. But I'm just going to choose the research project one. This is the creation widget. And so in our version of DMP Opidor, we still have the option to have what we call the classical template. So they are more the one with text, question and text. And we have introduced a structured template, which is based on the Science Europe recommendation, but the answers are structured according to some JSON schemas. So I'm just going to use that one. In this, currently, the feature that I'm showing you is available for both the classical and the structured template, because this is really a common part for all models without in the general information part. And so in this section, you have all the information about the project. And also we have a second section, what we call more the metadata about the plan. So it's there once you've chosen your top template or whatever template you've chosen. Then at the moment, we have only the information from one funder, which is the French national funder, but we're developing to be able to get information from other funders. So if I say that in my case, I have a project that has been funded by the French agency, then I can select. So we chose to display the title, the acronym, and the grant ID, because it seems that it was easier for the end user to select the correct project. For example, if I take that one, okay. And so what we collect then is the title, the acronym, we have the abstract of the project. So in our case, we have all the information in French and in English. We have the funding, so the information about the funder, so the French agency with identifier and the policy, a link to the policy, and the grant ID is there. And in that case, the project has been funded, so it's always, sorry, I see there's a mistake, or it's me. I think I made a mistake, so I'm sorry. I showed you the template in French, but we have it in English. Yeah, and so only when it is filled out, then we can sometimes have the start date and end date of the project and information about the partners. So in our case, as the French agency is asking for the French identifier, we might have it. It's really highly recommended, but it's not always really well filled out. Okay, so that's where we are. So so it's not a direct call using an API to the funders, because the funder doesn't have an API, doesn't expose. And so what's happening at the moment is that the French agency deposits the information on the French repository data.gov. And they try to do it regularly, once a month. And we collect this information, and there is a process. So we transform them and produce on the site a registry, which includes the title, acronym, and the grant ID. That's how we can show then the list here of all the funded project. And we have like a web service on the side. And so from DMPonline, there is a call to this web service, and the information is transformed and then imported into DMPonline. Okay. Is that clear enough? Just please ask any question. Sorry, did I lose you all?
Don't have any question. Very clear. Thank you.
Okay, so I guess as you can see, the implementation at Opidor pretty much fills in the plan as well. But as I understand it, Christine, you've had to make a lot of changes, and in particular, so one of them is limit the number of templates. Am I understanding this correctly?
So as I said, it's like a hybrid solution at the moment. So we still have the same way of working as DMP roadmap, but we sort of grafted a new data model so that we can really highly structure and standardize the answers. And this model, yeah, is based on Science Europe recommendation. I can try to show you. I just have a few slides on the side if that can help. Just have to find a screen, sorry. Ah, okay, sorry. Okay. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
So it's
yes.
just to show you, and then Diana, I know I haven't answered completely your question. So this is our model. So it's based on the Science Europe recommendation, and just to really structure and standardize all the information that is being collected, we created this model. So the DMP contain three blocks. So you have all the metadata on the plan, all the information about the project, which does include all the fundings and the funders and the information about the partners, and it can contain one or several research output. And each research output can be described with all these different elements. We have a general description of the research output. We have information about reuse data, about the collection of data, whether there are some personal data issues, then it has to be described, whether there is legal issues, ethical issues, something that was asked, information about data processing, about data storage, all about the documentation quality, quality assurance method, then data sharing, data preservation. So these are all the life cycle steps that we usually see that are already described. And so based on that, when you have a template, it's like the basic classical template. You have questions, so these are the Science Europe questions. But instead of saying it's going to be a text or a number or a list, we link the answer to a JSON schema. And JSON schema can also have some fields, some properties that can be also text number, but also can also be referring to some registries. So at the moment, the registries are ingested in the database of DMP Opidor, and we can then reuse them. So yeah, what the idea behind that is, even though we still have the classical model with their own features, except for the common part, we tend to encourage to use the structure template. This template can be customized and can be extended. And also, if we chose Science Europe one, it's because it was the mostly used. When we looked at the statistical analysis on our dashboard and we asked around, this was the model that was the most used because the French agency actually adopted this model. And of course, we still have the Horizon Europe model, which is still a classic one. But if we want to encourage interoperability and really enhance the potential of the tool and facilitate the reuse of information in input and output, then we had to really more structure the information, and we have to have a common data model, even if there can be still some extension and some specificities. So all the schemas that are beyond each section are extensible, and you can customize all the labeling, the example, but also the registry. That's how we hope that we're going to be able to implement it, and we're working with some thematic disciplinary communities to adopt and adapt this model. Did I answer the question?
Yes. Anybody else has questions?
Christina, I just have a question. Just wondering, when a user goes to create a plan, would the project typically already exist in the database? So would the user never face the scenario where they enter some interim values and then they select at a later point, they select the project, and then the project would overwrite the values, or similar to the problem?
No, at the moment, actually, in France, they tend to do the DMP, or start writing DMP after the project has been funded.
Okay, yeah.
So there hasn't been yet any encouragement to, start thinking about DMP right at the start, but it might change, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. I know there can be some updating of the information, mainly regarding number of partners sometimes. And this, I have to say that it's not completely clean, I would say, in the sense that we can import information, but the updating is still not clean enough. Yeah.
Oh, so the plan wouldn't be updated automatically if there's an update in the database?
No,
yeah, okay,
no.
right.
And also, it's the problem with many registries at the moment is that even though there are a lot of recommendation and guidances, all I call them metadata, all the metadata are not really properly filled. And so we can have, for example, partners without any IDs. So what can happen then is that, I mean, it's possible to enrich the information after the import of those funded information. So it's still possible, as you see, we had it all this filled so that they can always complete the information. So at the moment, in this version, is still you have to fill it manually. It will be still possible in the V4 that we're preparing, but now we will also use the API raw and ORCID API to really get the persistent identifiers, and so they wouldn't have to fill everything. But again, I think we will always have the problems of the quality and the I don't know how to say it in English, but whether it's really comprehensive. And so I know that at the moment, I'm not sure that we all have all the universities, research organizations, and laboratory, etc., in the raw registry. So we're still in between the French ID and the raw. And again, in the ORCID registry, it's not all that clean. So what we did, what we implemented, it's to get the ORCID, but we we display information, for example, about the workplaces to help the end user sometimes to really find the right one.
Thank you very much, Christine. There are a few questions coming in. So the first one from Joachim was, how do you and other institutional templates relate to the RDA DMP common standards, if at all? Nisa, sorry if you missed any mention.
For the RDA, I said we're compliant. So it means when you download the DMP, so you can still have the PDF, and you can do it in our default export is our model. And then we provide JSON compliant with RDA format. Yeah.
Okay, Joachim, go ahead.
Yeah, just wanted to ask, does that mean that you're compliant, that you actually validate against the RDA DMP common standard schema, MA DMP schema 1.1 all the time?
Yeah, the
JSON schema.
Yeah, we don't do the validation yet. Because as I said, the registry, even though they encourage like raw ORCID, not all contributors have an ORCID yet. All institutions or different entities are not registered to int raw. So there are some requirements that are still difficult to comply with. But we have a quite, it's not maybe fully compliant, but we had quite a lot of information that is filled within the RDA DMP common standard. Yeah.
Okay, I understand. I am just, I mean, we have the same situation. We depending on what is filled out actually in the DMP, we cannot fully validate. But I mean, to actually perform this validation is a way of keeping track of what's missing and what you could do to encourage users also to fill it out better, or for that sake get an ORCID ID if that's what's missing. Some people don't even have an ORCID ID, or they don't know that they have one because they have never used it.
Yeah, and some have several ones because they've tried several times.
That's true.
Yeah. Yeah, there is, it's really encouraged in France, but I think there's still a lot of work to be done. So, but it's more like political level and all the different organizations and initiatives have really to embrace this.
Okay, thank you anyway. Merci.
Je vous en prie.
Anybody else has questions? If not, all I can say is thank you so much, Christine. This was really useful. I mean, as you can see, essentially, the OPIDOR is based on the interface that was developed in Edinburgh and launched around 2014-15. I don't remember the exact date. And the roadmap code that we worked on together with OPIDOR, CDL, California Digital Library, and DMP Assistant in Canada. So, you know, we can achieve this level of automation, but we require lots of data in modeling and potentially limiting other choices like number of templates. However, I get the impression that that's not what the DMPonline users want. So what I'm not going to say is we're gonna wrap up potentially 10 minutes early. So for a quick summary, I'm going to say that we at Edinburgh will proceed with drafting a more detailed specification. I have received a number of offers for a mini group that will work on this specification. If you're interested, please drop me an email or send it to DMPonline, to the help desk, dmponline@dcc.ac.uk, to say they would like to be part of this little working group. Oh, Christine.
Sorry.
We will, no, don't worry. And we'll carry on working on developing the specification, and hopefully by the next meeting we will also come up with a rough timeline for this. But as I said, we don't want to rush it because usability is important, and we may also have to work on this in parallel with the new plan creation wizard, because they seem to be they need to work well together. So unless anybody has anything else to add, I would like to say thank you very much. This was a very useful meeting. Thank you so much for your input. Thank you so much to Christine for her presentation. So I'm just going to applaud here. If I a round of applause for Christine, please. Okay, and we will all see you. Thank you so much at the next user group, and the date for it is 21st November. And I hope we will revisit this topic. Another topic, potentially the workshop and at the IDCC in February. Okay, thank you so much. See you on 21st of November.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Goodbye. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.